Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we finished up the Phase 3 of the Lacon Majoris invasion, and now we get to go to the next segment. Stage 4, Betrayal. We've received substantial reinforcements both in orbit and on planetside. High Command has decided to go on the offensive with a combined fleet operation as well as surface attacks aimed to retake the Prometheum fields. Unfortunately, the plan was doomed from the start as traitorous forces have started a series of rebellions at the worst moment, putting the bulk of Imperial fleet and army at risk. We must preserve as much as we can. That sentence kind of threw me off. I was expecting putting the bulk of the Imperial fleet and army.
Your sensorium feed is up and running. Target coordinates decanted. Excuse my high gothic, but someone must be really desperate or mad to send an Inquisitor to take out field artillery units. Take care down there.
So, I was thinking about two things. First off, the way these are structured in this kind of, oh hey, it's a campaign to defend a planet, this would make for a really good, almost endless system in a looter shooter, because what you could do is introduce kind of a random gen, like, hey, we'll let the players decide how many sections, or you can, for a loot bonus, have a random number of segments, and you fight through them. Before you start it up, you can choose difficulty modifiers, much like how the Void Crusades kind of work, but different. You'd be able to say, like, oh, all missions automatically fail if anyone dies. Or more enemies spawn, increased difficulty, little things here or there.
You'll be back on board in no time.
And then players could fight through them because the environments could be semi-random or completely random gen. The game can go, okay, you're on this planet, now you're on this planet, and you can random gen the name, it doesn't matter. This is 40K, there's always a new planet. The Imperium is so vast and stretching across so many solar systems, you could, in theory, never see the same planet twice. Then the other thing I was thinking about is, I was reading some stuff for Dungeons & Dragons yesterday, and I was just reading stuff about, the Abyss and Hell and all that, and the different devils and demons and stuff. And I was thinking, man, it'd be really cool if we had more distinct chaos demons. Because all we have is, a name. Oh, maybe this guy looks a little different, but, every Great Unclean one is corpulent and looks pretty much the same. Every Bloodthirster and everything looks the same. There's nothing really standout about them, and they don't really have unique mechanics. They're just another one of this type. And it really makes Chaos feel very, I'd say, one-dimensional. Or two-dimensional. I guess it works either way. But there's just so little to them, because it's like, okay, you have the big bads, and then you just have, Grumbopolis Steve over here, who's a changer of ways, but nobody really cares because, he's the exact same as every other one. His name is just sounding stupid. But then I look at D&D and they're like, oh yeah, this guy, he's, a pit fiend, but he has this bonus and this special stat and these unique things. He's this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Because I just feel like Chaos Demons are so boring. And they shouldn't be. They should be one of the wildest factions. But they're just there. I think part of that is due to the fact that they don't really get new... They get new models, but they don't get new models.
Loading.
You know, what they have is been what they've had for a while. They're not getting a new kind of demon. Or when they do, it is very rare, and it's not that special. You know, I'd like to see someone under, let's say they're under Khorne. They could even be a Bloodthirster, but they work very closely with the Dark Mechanicus. So instead of looking like a normal Bloodthirster, they have a lot of demonic mechanical augmentations, and they get certain bonuses tied to Dark Mechanicus. And their armies can field more, or some unique interaction. They can mess with vehicles. Just something. It makes the character stand out. You're like, oh, that's a unique guy who isn't just the head guy. And from a role-playing perspective, it gives players more interest. Because I've noticed that when it's like, oh, this relic contains the soul of this demon bound to it. I'm like, I don't care. Squiggly splotch the demon. The name is irrelevant to me. Ooh, he burned 500 worlds. I don't care. He needs to look cool. He needs to be cool. If he's just the same as every other one, but with a different name, I don't care. Nah, we're good enough on this place. Oh, it's the time dilation armor. I never use that. Like, I just don't use it. Let's actually check. Is it better than what I have? How? How is it still 5.14 quality worse? Whatever. Range combat. I mean, crit chance is always nice. Physical. You know, we're going to go with the crit initially. Because that's just crit chance with ranged weapons.
Between the stars, the ancient unseen enemies of mankind wait and hunger. Be strong and give them no quarter.
The Dark Eldar are back. I feel like the Dark Eldar need more attention too. I feel like this can be, it can be said, what I said about the Chaos Demons can be said about every faction, except probably just the, like, Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines. Because very few other groups have anybody who really specializes in anything. Most of the time they're just big bad man of this faction. So I remember going through orcs, for instance, their lore, and they got some interesting lore bits, but then they're all just like, yeah, he's an orc war boss. Just like the last guy, just like the guy after him. Hopefully these primes will do something new. It'll be interesting, because those primes are supposed to be like 10 meters tall, so that's like 30 feet, I think? They're big. The beast, which is supposed to be the biggest of the primes ever, was mistaken as a statue initially, and then it moved and everybody kind of freaked out. How an orc managed to stand still long enough to let people get close to attacking is surprising to me. I saw a thing, apparently Age of Sigmar, they're adding dragons to the Stormcast Eternals. And all I could think is, oh cool, they're getting more stuff. And apparently after, they're going to get a balance pass, which I thought, shouldn't you probably balance pass now? Outside of magic, I don't know what they do that's... what anybody else does that's unique. And I'm kind of bummed with Age of Sigmar, because there's a lot of cool stuff they've been adding that I'm sitting here thinking, man, that would have been really cool for fantasy. Like their battle cry, I think it is, it's like a small team skirmish kind of deal. And they added, what was it? These like spider cultist guys and all these other things. And I was like, these would be really cool for fantasy. You know, I would actually get into it and play as like a cultist. Or run a cultist army. I think that'd be neat. I mean, hopefully we'll get new stuff for when they keep putting stuff out for Old World. But at the same time, what kind of bugs me is this runs the risk of having, you know, I'd almost call it like Gears of War syndrome or Halo syndrome, where they add something and then they release games that are in chronological order, then they do a prequel that adds new stuff, and then they have to explain, oh yeah, we don't use that anymore for reasons unknown. Like Gears had these melee guys and they're like, oh, they all died because of melee. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess. Kinda lame. And then they had, for Halo, it was a bunch of weapons. Brute plasma rifles. One of their vehicles was a, like, brute 3-man vehicle, essentially like a warthog for them. From 2, I think? Maybe 3? And then they just never brought it back. Some of the other weapons. They're just like, yep, they used them, and then they don't. Shut up and don't question it. And I'm like, why? Can't you just gimme? I would rather have these factions have more stuff than not. Plus, it's going to be really weird depending on how much they add. Because if they add just tons of stuff to Old World, it's only, I think, a couple hundred years prior. And I'm going to be wondering what happened. You know, you can't add super fancy advanced dwarf tech. You know, you're not going to have dwarven mechs firing troll hammer torpedoes. Because then anyone in their right mind is going to go, where did those go?
The enemies of the Imperium failed miserably.
You think someone would have stored those or kept the knowledge somewhere so that, you know, you could slap around Grimgor Ironhide instead of getting slapped around. Unless they pull some Clan Eshin murked everyone who knew, and the Dwarven hold that had them conveniently sprung a leak and flooded, and then caught fire and then just disappeared. And I'd be really annoyed with that explanation. Like, really, really annoyed. Ah, Berserk State. Oh well. So, that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button. It helps out the channel a lot. If you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.